What's going on, everyone? This is Zach, and today we have a guest on the channel. It is Evan Scott, right after his top 8 in the Indianapolis Regional, the first regional for Pokemon Champions. So, we're going to talk to him about his team and his experience, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you want to hear me talk about Indianapolis a little bit more, you can check out the previous video, but this one will just be focused on Evan's experience and his play with his team. So, let's get into it. So, first of all, tell me what led you to pick these Pokemon. I know that you worked on it with John Luke, but what did you guys see in each of these mons?
So leading into it, we landed on this about a week and a half before Indy. Um, we were originally playing like Zard Sun, like fairly standard Zard Sun stuff, and then we were just like we weren't having fun playing that, and we were like, okay, like what do we like playing? Okay, well we both like the idea of Winscott Glamora duo because like that is like such a good combo into the lot of the common stuff right now. So like we liked that because we both just enjoyed using that. And we were like, okay, well, we also really both just like using Incineroar because we kind of like a balancy, slow down the pace of the game style. So like we got onto those three very quickly. Um, we originally actually were playing around with Mega Pinsir over
Ooh.
Froslass at one because we were like wanted to do something funny. And from there we had filled out like, okay, well, if we have a flying type, we want Garchomp for earthquake stuff. So like we very quickly were like, okay, like yeah, like we can use Garchomp. Um, and then we landed into Corviknight just because it like really helped the sand matchup, and like we also just enjoy Corviknight, but like it was specifically like a very good like matchup Pokemon. And then like when we really sat down and looked at the team, we were like, hey, doesn't Froslass just like replace this Pinsir and just make this team like 99% better than it is? And we were like, yes, because Blizzard plus Aurora Veil just goes crazy with the rest of these Pokemon. Because like it allows you to have like that super aggressive Tailwind mode with like Glamora, Froslass, Whimsicott, and Garchomp. But like then you can also have the Aurora Veil support with like your Citrus Garchomp with Incin and bulk up Corv. It's just like a very good balanced way of playing the game with like two different modes of the team. So we really just landed on this because we wanted something that was fun for us to play. Was like the big thing.
Yeah, and we talked about the core of like in the Discord like throughout these last couple of weeks. And like Corv just has like so many matchups where like if you can eliminate its threats, it wins.
Yeah, especially like if you're playing like the bulk up roost, like it just becomes like an end game win condition in a lot of matchups. Um, Personally, for me this weekend, I didn't use Corviknight a lot outside of my stream matches. But that was just the nature of I played Sun for like 80% of my Swiss rounds. So I didn't have the like core of matchups come my way, but like it's such a good matchup Pokemon for like sand teams or just like heavy physical teams in general. If they don't have anything to slow down Corviknight, it's such a good Pokemon into a lot of matchups.
Yeah, and having the Whimsicott there allows you to drop like Tailwind on Corviknight and allows you to have the roost or have the extra attack that you need to cover a lot of matchups. So like I think most people use Corviknight as their Tailwind setter, but you having the Whimsicott allows your Corviknight to do just a little bit more and cover some crucial matchups as well.
Yeah, it definitely does because like we saw like Michael Zhang, right? Like he was running like the Brave Bird Iron Head Tailwind set, which is definitely a good set, but because of like the overall composition of our team, we didn't need the Tailwind on Corviknight, and we just found we had more value in Roost over Protect because we were often playing into a end game position where like if you already have Corviknight set up, you don't really need the turns for protect for the leftovers recovery. You're just further ahead to click roost. So that became like a pretty like we landed on this set fairly quickly.
Yeah. How do you feel about Focus Sash Glamora? And this is more of a personal question for me because I kind of took when Glamora popped up, I was just like, okay, like I like the Focus Sash, but it feels too one dimensional. And like that, like the toxic spikes are really good when you get them, but like there are some ways to play around the Glamora where like you don't get that much benefit out of it with the Focus Sash set. So I've actually been running a Mega Glamora as like a second Mega on the
Yeah,
team that I have for it.
we like briefly toyed with the idea of like trying the Mega, but our thing was because Glamora was very much like our Sun team matchup, and because those teams almost always had like a Garchomp, a King Gambit that was like sometimes had Iron Head, sometimes it didn't, but it was pretty common to see Iron Head, and they often had like a Basket Legion. We found it was better with the Sash just as like a really good damage trader because like you had to respect the Glamora, and then like also just like toxic spikes for our style of team was like very good because like there's specific damage like rolls on things where it's like we don't quite pick up, but if we get one turn toxic chip on something, we now pick up. And then like also just like with the amount of protects and like again like the end game corviknight situations, like being able to get up toxic spikes is also like just very beneficial for our team as a whole.
And the Aurora Veil allowing you to keep your Pokemon around longer and take
Yeah,
advantage of that toxic chip.
exactly, because like we can get into it later, but like especially for like trick room matchups, we were often like we would like bait the fake out into a slot and just switching Glamora on the fake outs to immediately get spikes up. That way things like their, Torkoal or Mega Camerupt or Crabominable were just poisoned, and then like by the time Trick Room ends, they're already kind of in range of any double up that we could ever want to do.
And the Camerupt and the Torkoal are very HP dependent, like even like Blastoids as well that you might see commonly on those Trick Room teams. They're HP dependent, so like the more you can just whittle down that HP, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
So we
uh,
just per person for us on our team, like the Focus Sash set just made a lot more sense than running the dual Mega. Um, but like I definitely think there's like a world where Mega Glamora could be like a future meta development as well. It just is unfortunate that the regulation's coming to an end here in a couple weeks, but
I'm excited to see where they go from here.
yeah, I'm interested to see what the next format is, especially because it's going to be the only event for the next format is going to be Worlds, which hasn't happened since the first year of Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah,
So I'll
but
just to see
people
how that
disliked that.
people disliked that very much. But we'll see what happens with it because at least we have a couple months with the format before Worlds does happen.
See, if it wasn't for Worlds, here's my idea, and I actually wanted to make a video about this. I wish that Reg MB got rid of all the megas from MA and just brought whatever megas are left instead.
See that'd be really interesting, but I feel like again, like you'd end up with like an extremely centralized like Mega Salamence, Mega Metagross kind of thing, where it's like you'd get like your couple really strong ones, and then everything else is just kind of like okay. But it definitely would be interesting.
Mega Salamence and Mega Metagross, like that, will probably help put an end to the Megazard, Mega Garchomp, because I feel like Salamence can do so well into those.
Yes, especially Mega Salamence, like, because like you're gonna be faster than the Charizard. Your Aerialate Hyper Voice is just, or Double Edge is just gonna do so much
Stupid
damage
damage.
that like you're just, and like you resist the Zard Wise moves unless they'd have to start running Air Slash or even Ancient Power or something. Like the standard Zard set right now just wouldn't touch Salamence. So like all of a sudden the Zard teams would have to start changing as well.
Yeah, but if you drop, like, what would you drop? Like, you don't want to drop Weather Ball, you don't want to drop Heat Wave, so like you drop Solar Power, and then
Yeah, you'd
the
have to run.
Milotics, the Basculegions, like, will start taking you down, even if it's
Yeah,
slower with the sun.
yeah, yeah. It becomes an issue for Charizard. So I definitely think that like as soon as like Salamence, or like as soon as like we get more of these other added to the game, Charizard does drop off a fair bit. I think is just my personal view of the meta as we like are laid out, because like we saw in top cut there, like top 16, there there weren't that many Charizards considering it was like the mega coming into this event.
Yeah. So I went down and I wrote down all of your opponent's teams round one, and I don't know if you've looked at it yet. You played 8 Garchomps, you played 8 Zard Ys, 1 Zard X, 7 Basculegions, 7 King Gambits, 5 Whimsicots, 3 Dragonites, 4 Ensign and Sinistra, 6 Sneaslers, and 1 T-Tar.
Yeah. Also the T-Tar was wolf, and the T-Tar in testing was generally not a problem because like we have the corviknight, but specifically like the Dragon Dance T-Tar with like the support Rotom with Sinistra ended up being like extremely bad. But broadly speaking, T-Tar was like perfectly manageable for us, but it was just like specifically Wolf's team was rough.
Yeah, he definitely he found something there, which, like, Arch in the Discord has been like praising Dragon Dance T-Tar for since Champions started. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I like low kick better for the King Gambit
Yeah,
matchup.
I was very much on the same trend of like I feel like setup, unless like you're like very specific setup Pokemon, like I think setup Corviknight is good because of the nature of how Corviknight plays.
Yeah.
But like I think like setup sweepers aren't like, it's not exactly a healthy meta for setup sweepers in my opinion. Like it's a very like damage trade heavy meta game, which makes it very hard to like effectively get set up safely a lot of the time.
I'd have to say,
But
like, at best, like, maybe like a Shell Smash Blastoids here and there, but like that's still like kind of gimmicky.
yeah, like it's gimmicky, especially like it's a lot more toxic in like a best of one situation because like you have some of the Blastoids that like they aren't running Shell Smash, but like they're on similar teams to what the Shell Smash ones are on. So it's just kind of like what mode are they actually doing?
Yeah, are you gonna fake out Trick Room, or are you just like stopping the fake out to Shell Smash? Like, but like I said before, I'm really curious about your game plan into the Chomp and Zard Y, because you faced 8 of each of them, with 1 of each not being on the team together, but seven out of the 8 of the Zard Garchomps were on the same team. Very common core. Like, we saw it at like 50% throughout the weekend. You saw it way more than 50%. It looks kind of scary with Ensign Glamora not wanting to take ground attacks from Garchomp, and Froslass, Corviknight, and Whimsicott not wanting to deal with the Charizard. So like on paper, this matchup seems really hard, but you beat every single one. So can you give me some insight on that?
Yeah, so just like Part of it is the battle on team preview here, because if they bring the Garchomp, and I do happen to bring Froslass or even corviknight for some reason, Garchomp like can't do much, right? Like it can't really touch corviknight, and it just drops to a blizzard from Froslass. So you have to like play with that in mind. Where a lot of these teams, what they were doing is because like they had like the common cores of like the Whimsicott, um, King Gambit, Basculegion, Charizard type teams was like a lot of what I faced. Um, a lot of times they're leading like King Gambit, Whimsicott, or King Gambit, Basculegion into my team. My team does not appreciate King Gambit in the slightest. So this is where we have like a very specific thing, and it's intentional that we have this game plan, because when you look at our sets, you see bold Whimsicott, and you're not going to anticipate much damage, despite the fact that it has the fairy feather. But the very cool thing is the Moonblast from Whimsicott plus the Earth Power from Modest Glamora is basically always an KO on standard King Gambits. So unless they like very specifically would lead like Basculegion King Gambit and like double Prio Glim turn one, you're almost always trading very well turn one, just removing the King Gambit before they can go for something like Ironhead. And because they have to bring Whimsicott, otherwise they just like don't have the speed control to try to manage the Garchomp, like my Garchomp and Mora. So quite often, like in the Sun teams, I was always leading Glamora Whimsicott with Froslass Garchomp back, and Froslass was just always the end game cleanup. Basically, is how I played it, and just used like Glamora Garchomp to just like effectively trade damage in the like early and mid game, and then Froslass was just like an end game cleanup, because half the time they're already taking damage on uh Chomp, like their own Chomp if they have it. Because like they also don't want to bring Garchomp and Whimsicott. So like it was always just like a bit of a mind game on the team preview, just like they don't want to bring Garchomp into Froslass, but oftentimes they see how problematic the Whimsicott Glamora lead was for them in game one, and they would adjust to bring Garchomp, and then it was kind of just free to go like a Whimsicott Froslass game two lead and just Tailwind Blizzard immediately, because they were never leading Zards. So it was just a very much like we had specific lines for the first like two turns, and as long as they approach the matchups like a standard player would, we basically just could always execute the Moonblast Earth Power, the King Gambit turn one, and you're just up them on immediately, and you kind of just go from there.
Yeah, I know. I've dealt with that lead a lot with running my version of Whimsicott Glamora, especially like my Whimsicott is Focus Sash and my Glamora is Mega. But if I don't want to Mega the Glamora, like that double up there only does like 60% because I'm not fully invested. Like I also had to switch to Timid because I kept losing the speed ties against like standard Glamoras, and I was just like, okay, I at least got to make it like a 50-50. So I went Timid, and now I'm only hitting like if I did that, I would only hit like 60%, like 60 to 70%. So like the King Gambit still hangs around.
Yeah, so like importantly, like our Whimsicott's Moonblast were typically doing between 23 and like 26% to King Gambits. So the Earth Power would then do like was like the average roll for Earth Power was somewhere between 67 to 69% were like the common damage rolls. So like you almost like you would have to like low roll both the Earth Power and the Blast to not pick up the KO, and I think that only happened to me once all weekend. I left a King Gambit at like 2%, but they might have also just had a couple ticks of special defense investment that they don't normally have as well. So it might have been a slightly different role, but it's a very effective way to trade for the damage. And like by doing that, like they don't expect the Moonblast Earth Power to actually pick up Gambit because they see bold Whimsicott. So they expect a very bulky Whimsicott. So they're not expecting a lot of damage from the Moonblast. And it allows us to remove the King Gambit, so Froslass is a lot more safe in the matchup, especially if they're not Choice Scarf Basket Legion on the team.
Yeah, so that actually leads me into my next question. When I was looking these super common Pokemon that you were facing, I was kind of writing down their items as well. And I want to say the Garchomps you faced, there was 4 Citrus, 2 Roselia Berries, and 2 Scarfs. But when you look at the Basket Legion, you had 2 Scarfs, 2 Citrus Berries, 1 Sash, and 1 Mystic Water. I know we talked about the T-Tar earlier, about how the Dragon Dance threw you off, but when it comes to variety and sets, like this Basket Legion I just mentioned, for example, having so many different items throughout your run, did this create any challenges? Was there like a mon or a set that like really caught you off guard? Like, oh, I didn't expect that to actually work, but it did.
Not particularly. My round 4 opponent, I believe his Basket Legion is like a bulky Basket Legion with Citrus Berry, and that was problematic for him because he had led like a Whimsicott Basket Legion game 1 as I led Whimsicott Glamora, and I was like, oof, like that's not good for me at all. But especially because like the Citrus means like, yeah, like I'm not trading effectively with that lead. So like that kind of threw my standard lead out into the Sun team. But like outside of that, like all of those were like common-ish items to see on Basket Legion coming into the event. So like the most annoying one was definitely Choice Scarf because it meant that Froslass was never faster unless we could manage our tailwinds. But like the modest Froslass with the Shadow Ball there, we made sure we had enough investment to always be KOing 2 special defense invested Basket Legions, which is why we're so offensive. So if they do lead like Scarf Basque or they have an endgame Scarf Basque, but we have Tailwind, like we can just guarantee the knockout with Shadow Ball without any chance of missing it. So like we typically like didn't have too much issue regardless of the like item on Basket Legion. It really just came down if they are the Choice Scarf variant, we had to be mindful of or managing our speed control. But if they're like Citrus or Mystic Water or anything, like you're usually pretty safe as long as you have a little bit of chip on them or something that you can just KO a Shadow Ball immediately.
That's a good point. And then you can get that chip through Spiky Shield or Toxic Debris. And that's another thing that I like about Glamora is that like if they over respect the Glamora, like if they try to double up on it, like if you just Spiky Shield, like you're getting in chip before the Toxic even shows up.
Yeah. And like that does come up quite often where it's like, especially after like a game 1 where I just like played super aggressive turn 1 with Whimsicott Glamora, and if I lead the Whimsicott Glamora again, like a lot of times they'll tunnel focus on the Glamora, and I'll just sit there and Spiky Shield, get some chip with that, and just fire off a free Moonblast with Whimsicott. And then then all of a sudden you're like, oh well, now he's threatening a damn like KO with Glamora on that slot, and now he can do whatever he wants with the Whimsicott on the other slot. So like it creates a lot of mind games sometimes too, with like getting the chip and then threatening KOs in various positions. It's a very good like positional team with like how you're distributing your damage to your opponent.
That are some people just like I've played a couple people that just flat out ignore the Glamora. They try to like save it for last, and it's just like you can't do that because like I'm getting sludge bombs, like I'm getting like I'm getting chances of poison, like I'm getting earth power, like I'm getting power gem, like
Yeah, like people sometimes don't respect the damage Glamora is going to do. Like, you still have 130 base special attack. It is one of the best special attackers that's not a mega evolution in this format. And like I said, like with that focus sash, it's just such a good damage trading Pokemon that you kind of have to respect it, but you can't, like, because of that spiky shield and how physical heavy the metagame is, you can't over index on the Glamora and risk spiky shield, like taking the spiky shield chip all the time. So it creates very good, like, mind game situations. Like we saw that in my game 2 against Michael Zhang on stream, where he had an end game where, or he was in a position where he could e-speed my Whimsicott or my Glamora, but he was at 1 HP on his Arcanine. So he didn't risk clicking e-speed into Glim and just taking the chip down and losing his Arcanine for nothing. So I also took the advantage of that and just attacked with Glamora, knowing he wouldn't want to e-speed that slot, which then let me position my corviknight for the end game.
yeah, very true. I wish there was like a move you didn't need as much on Glamora, because all of them are so important. Like the Sludge Bomb for the fairy types, like the Power Gem for the Charizard, the whole reason why like people started using it, and the Earth Power for like King Gambit and like Archaludon. Because like how crazy would it be if you could have a Glamora and run Stealth Rock? Because I'm pretty sure it gets Stealth Rock. It should. It's a rock type.
It certainly does somewhere in the list.
Like if you could somehow roll compress it to just be Cleavor and Glamora at the same time.
Yeah, like it could be good. It also gets coverage moves. There were some that were spin because it does allow you to actually remove opposing Glamora's toxic spikes if you're on the field and you can't switch in your Glamora on them, or removing opposing Cleavor stealth rocks for your own Charizard.
Yeah.
That was a small adaptation that we had seen, but it didn't really pick up. But like I think it's just because like the 4 moves that you run on Glamora, being Power Gem, Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, Spiky Shield, are just like essential for it, basically. That it's hard to not, or like it's hard to fit something else on there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's definitely becoming a mon that has like 5 slot syndrome.
Yeah, that is like a very common theme in this format, it feels like. Because like we're seeing some Pokemon, like there was like I played numerous Garchomps that were dropping Protect and running 4 attacks, despite not being Scarf. Like they'd be like Citrus 4 attacks or Roselli Berry 4 attacks.
Yeah, that kind of started
jab.
with the Glamora, with the poison jab. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could also see like it would make Froslass weaker on lead, but like if you were relying a lot on the Glamora, like Hex on the Froslass could also be a good move.
It definitely could. There's just like there are some scenarios where it's just like you're not always getting the toxic off, like the spikes up, and you need the Shadow Ball for like KOs into certain things. Whereas if you could guarantee poisons all the time, like Hex could be good, but we just thought the consistency of Shadow Ball was better.
Yeah, it gives you a better Froslass lead. So when you weren't facing Sun, you went against one Trick Room focus team that was the Mega Crab. You went against one Rain team and then 3 Sand teams. One of those Sand teams was Michael Zhang's team that also had the Froslass as well. So I guess we can count that as a Snow team. Like, what were some challenges in the non-Zard matches that you came across?
So specifically, one of the sand teams was my round, which wasn't inherently a hard matchup, but it was the fact that they had Mega Delphox on sand, so they had something to really threaten the corviknight. That was like tricky to navigate, but like again, like Glamora plus Garchomp was just like so oppressive into the team overall that like I was just effectively trading damage with like board control with Whimsicott that like that matchup wasn't like particularly difficult. The rain matchup was actually probably my luckiest set because that was a game 3 set. I got saved in game 2. I Blizzard froze my opponent's King Gambit on the switch in, which they then stayed frozen for 2 turns. Which like it completely saved me in game 2.
I remember you putting that in the Discord. You were like, I was saved round 8.
Yeah, but like, and again, that's the nature of playing Blizzard, right? Like, you're gonna get it sometimes. And that was that Blizzard freeze on that King Gambit in round 8 was actually the first Blizzard freeze I got in day 1. It was the only one I got. No, that's a lie. It was my second or third one because I froze my round 7 opponent's Sylveon as well. But the rain matchup is one that's hard to navigate at times. Like it's another one like Whimsicott is still very good. Because like Blast plus Earth Power does pick up most Arcalibur unless they are like super specially defensive. And then like you're pressuring the King Gambits that they have as well, pressuring Pelipper with power gems. So it kind of becomes like the Bastion Legions on those teams and the King Gambits again are just like definitely the most annoying pieces. But like a lot of times it was just like your like I would do like Whimsicott, Froslass, Garchomp into those teams. Like that was like a very this weekend was for in most of my matchups. Like the Mega Crab team that I played round 3, we have like a very specific like approach, like where we would lead Incineroar class, so we can just threaten a Roar Veil turn 1, so we can effectively have the bulk to stall out the Trick Room. And because the Trick Room setters were almost always draft, by leading Incin, you're getting Blizzard plus Throat Chop into draft turn. So they kind of have to click the fake out into the Incin slot. And then you would then just swap in let the spikes go up. And now you have Poison plus Veil on the field. And you're just effectively just like sneaking in some damage while you're in Trick Room and then stalling out the Trick Room. And you're just kind of like positioning yourself to make sure that they can't set up a second Trick Room. Like you want to make sure you have damage down on the half so that you can KO it before it sets up a second, but not giving them free switch-ins is essentially how we navigate the Trick Room matchup.
And then getting that, because like that's one thing I've noticed playing like a Glomora team as well. Like when you run the Trick Room like that, you'll tend to see Farigiraf target down that Glomora to knock it out without getting the spikes up. So like baiting the fake out is like really good there. And then you can then start playing mind games like, oh, you want to psychic into the Glomora? What if I bring back Incin for damage mitigation? Like,
well, exactly. And then because they know you have the Incineroar, less incentivized to just immediately psychic the Glomora as well. Swap right back to again. Right? And you're just killing another turn Trick Room. So and behind Veil, even though you have Sash broken, like you live the psychic anyways, even from like fairly offensive drafts. So like you're fine to take the first psychic as well.
Were there any Pokemon that you played that you weren't super prepared for, or like they were unexpected, or maybe they were played in an unexpected way and you were expecting them to run a certain way? I know I feel like the easiest question is like Wolf's team for like a lot of these questions, because it's just Wolf's team. Anything other than the T-Tar Steelix that like caught you off guard?
Outside of Wolf's team, the only other thing that was like really like surprising to me was the Focus Sash Rockhead Hisuian Arcanine from Michael Zhang's team. That ended up being like the main deciding factor, in my opinion, in our top 8 set, was that Arcanine. Like it just like exerted so much pressure into my team, and I had, because of this Focus Sash on it, I had no way to trade effectively into it because it was faster than my whole team as well. That was probably the only like Pokemon that I played that was like really like, oh, like we did not consider this in the builder.
It's kind of hard. Like I've seen some of it on froslass teams. It's kind of like Michael Zhang's team is like really good because it's a sand team and a snow team. Like with the froslass and the Hisuian Arcanine, this is something that we saw a lot in Reg H with Alolan Ninetales and stuff. Like this is, so it's not uncommon, but it's been uncommon in our recent meta that like even Ensign
like
dropped a bit. Like
like it has the historic record for it, but like just like leading into Indianapolis, like it just wasn't really on the radar very much. Like it wasn't really like doing anything in VR tours particularly much. Like it wasn't doing like what we weren't seeing teams being posted that were like really high on ladder with it or anything. I played a little bit of Rockhead Hisuian Arcanine, and like it is pretty good. But just like going off of what we were seeing as common trends, like it wasn't something that we were considering in our when we were building our team. Obviously, after the fact, yeah, specifically when it's paired with the Froslass, it is very hard for our team to deal with.
I forget, does Rockhead boost recoil moves or does it eliminate the
No.
recoil?
It eliminates the recoil,
Okay.
so that's what really made the Arcanine hard to trade with, was the fact that it was like firing off Flare Blitz and Rockhead into my team without ever taking a recoil, right? And then it had that Focus Sash, so I had to always twice. I just didn't have like effective ways to trade it because it was faster than my whole team, and it was just, normally I would use like Garchomp to trade for that, but because I have the Froslass, it's kind of, I can't do that.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like tough. And yeah, like the Hydreigon as well. Like you don't see a lot of like, I don't think there was a lot of that.
No, there wasn't a lot. We saw like, it was very common with like the sand archetype. Specifically, like we saw it do well with Joseph Ugarte's like early sand team. The Choice Scarf Hydreigon was like good on that. I wouldn't say we didn't consider it with our team, but it was just like in the combination of Michael's team, like it was kind of annoying. Like Froslass lives, uh, Froslass will live one hit from it. Um, Obviously, like it's the Choice Scarf variant, so like you're forcing it to lock a move, and when you have Whimsicott, you can just Moonblast it, unless they're running like Heat Wave, but like you're gonna live a Heat Wave anyways. But like it was just like specifically like within Michael's team composition, like it was hard for me to trade effectively with Michael's team.
Yeah, that's really been the name of the game with like MA, is just like a trade or disrupt.
Yeah, we it has been like a very aggressive format overall, I feel.
And it is, I do think it's surprising. Well, not really surprising, but like with how there's not a lot of setup. Like Encore is one of the best moves on Whimsicott right now, and usually that's a way to like punish setup. Like, but I mean, you still see it in the Tailwind and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like also like specifically with like within our Encore is good because like you're pressuring like if you just lead like Whimsicott Froslass and you're just like I'm just gonna Tailwind Blizzard you, and if you start protecting to try to position, well now I have the Encore pressure, so I'm kind of incentivizing you to not protect. It's kind of like the whole thought process with like the Whimsicott Froslass combination that like we played. It was just like good at kind of forcing your to not play defensively.
Yeah, I see that. Like, and then like if they play aggressively, you have the Corviknight, you have the Ensign to punish those aggressive plays. You have the Spiky Shield and the Toxic Debris. Like, you're forcing your opponent to play a certain way, which allows you to have more control of the game and like the board position.
Yeah, and like that was definitely like the name, the approach game where like I feel like most games I was in the seat in most of my games throughout the weekend. Like I was dictating the pace of the game, like 95% of the time, outside of like the games on stream where it's like it was like a lot more like back and kind of control. Like Wolf was controlling the pace of our set a lot more. Um, Me and Michael, I think, were like a back and with it, but like he just played better than I did. Set kind of plain and simple. Um, but like overall, like I feel like the team allowed me to kind of maintain the control of the state a lot more effectively than my opponents were able to. And especially like when I was playing a lot of like the Zard Sun teams, those teams don't to play defensively quite often. But because I'm threatening power gems and rock slides into the Charizard, they're kind of forced to try to play defensively. But then that lets me focus down other slots and like just trade effectively into like Picking Gambit and Basket Legion, which then just lets me bring in like Froslass and Blizzard is doing like 70% to Charizards. So
Yeah, because it's still got that flying type. So like the Blizzard is neutral. Like,
yeah, and the important thing is if you can, um, Froslass does have a positive roll chance to live the heat wave from Charizard wise in snow. Um, as long as the heat wave is spread damage, you have a solid chance to live.
one thing I've noticed, and like I feel like this is something that you've taken advantage of, where like controlling the pace of the game with the Glomora and Whimsicott, this is changing how people have been playing Sneasler, and I feel like that's why we didn't see as much Sneasler as what we've seen on the ladder, is because like you have to keep Sneasler in the back now. Like it's either you let it get up the toxic spikes, and then like you have to pivot like Sneasler out and then back in to soak up the toxic spikes, or if you like try to get rid of the Whimsicott, like the Encore and Earth Power like punishes Sneasler heavily. So like I feel like we like these two are the reason why we saw so many Focus Sash Sneaslers like this weekend.
Yeah, like I didn't play too many Sneaklers in general. Like I think I only like I it feels like I didn't. Like there was like teams that had them, but then like they weren't.
All right.
Hello.
Hello. A
We
little
are
bit of a
back.
disconnection, but we're back.
Yeah, that was weird. Like my internet was like showing full connection, but just like stopped working.
Your explanation on the Sneasler like approach, like basically all got cut out.
Okay, so basically, because like Sneasler's not like particularly like amazing into my team, right? Like we have like the Garchomp and the corviknight that both just threat, like, and like the Glamora with Earth Power, right? All threaten it, and like you're only hitting the Whimsicott and Ensign on my side, and like Ensign already has the Choppleberry as well, so like especially if you're not the white herb, like then you're also getting intimidated and makes it hard for them to effectively bring Sneasler a lot of the times, unless they are the white herb. So it wasn't like particularly problematic for my team, but I do think it is a because I have the Glamora, it also like a lot of times can force like them to play a certain way if they don't want to deal with the toxic spikes.
Yeah, like I was saying, we've seen Sneasler go more into the back and go more focus sash. Like so we've seen people adapt to it, and also like Sneasler's really good for controlling the pace, and like you said, you felt like you controlled the pace of most of your games. Like the way Sneasler does that is fake out, and you can immediately punish that with Encore.
Yeah, it is very good. I had um in two of my sets where Sneaslers had gone for fake out, and then they like I just encored them to fake out, and they refused to swap the Sneasler because of the offensive pressure I was threatening into their side of the field. They didn't want their back line to take the damage, so they would just sit on the field and struggle and just KO their own Sneasler. So like it was very good at just like forcing, like because the style of my team is very good at forcing certain plays, which makes it harder for teams to bring the Sneasler on lead into me.
Yeah, and I've seen that's definitely been changing the meta a little. Looking back or looking ahead, is there any changes you would make to your six?
So I don't think I would inherently say there are any changes I would make to it, just because like yeah, I lost in top 8, but like my only like the things that I lost to were like so like hyper specific things that like I don't think they were entirely an oversight in team builder, and there was like I took games in the sets that I lost. So I think it was more of just like I wasn't able to navigate those matchups because of the inexperience with like against their type of team. So I don't think there's inherently anything specific I would change looking back. A couple like smaller things that you could do, but like they would start changing some of the defensive calcs of the team a bit. Is like making froslass like I think it has to be like 2 or 3 speed points faster to outspeed the Jolly Hisuian Arcanine. Like that could be something, but you also kind of want the offense and bulk that we have on it, so it's kind of hard to decide whether you'd want just a bit more speed for the one specific speed tier that you're trying to hit there or not. Um, but outside of that, like I thoroughly um, enjoyed the team as it is.
Yeah, those stream matchups, like you played them so well, and it's hard to play against great team builders and great pilots like Michael Zhang and Wolf Glick. Like,
Yeah, like it was definitely just like a combination of I was playing two of the best North American players that we have in the scene, and the teams being not extremely good matchups for me either inherently, um, made it rough to just navigate the matchups, but I was still satisfied with how I performed overall.
Yeah, I think anytime you can take a high ranking player like that to game 3, like it's still like a good game. Like, what was my first regional in Knoxville? I played Ashton Cox, and I was just happy I took him to game 3.
Yeah, like a lot of the times, it can be a real good like confidence boost to just like be like, yeah, like my first time playing on stream was against Wolf Glick, and I didn't get 2-0'd.
Yeah,
Like that's kind of impressive for me personally. Like, yeah, I lost, but like I didn't get 2-0'd by Wolf on stream. That's an accomplishment.
I would definitely agree with you there. Um, where do you think the meta goes from here? Because we saw a lot of different teams, like we saw yours and Michael Zhang's and Wolf Clicks, and then we saw that there were only like 2 Charizard and Garchomps in final, but they still ended up winning it. So where do you think the meta goes from here?
So I definitely think we will see a downtick in, I want to say a downtick in Zard just overall, just because like I think a lot of players came into Indianapolis using like extremely standard Zard Y teams because they were trying to push for consistent points to try to make sure they could qualify for Worlds, was I think like a big thing for a lot of players here. So they were just going with what they knew was safe and good. But because we saw what the results were from like the top cut, I think we see a good shakeup where like we now proved Mega Froslass is actually a very good Pokemon as long as you can build out the team correctly to check the answers that you need to. We saw Mega T-Tar, like there was like 5 Mega Tyranitar in top 16. That that's kind of insane leading into this because like it was just like all Zards, and like we saw good representation from all weathers outside of rain coming into top cut. Right, there was one rain team there.
Yeah, you would think it would be the opposite, like where everyone's looking and seeing, okay, Charizard is king. Let's run rain. Let's run the opposite.
Yeah, you think rain would be pretty popular, and I do think rain was popular, and I think it just kind of phased out in like the middle rankings of the regional. It just didn't like. I think it was more of just not a lot of the top players chose rain coming into this, and it just kind of fizzled out. I think is like the big thing of what happened at Indy, but I do think rain isn't an interesting thing because like I think it's like kind of the worst of the 4 weathers in a way right now, just because you don't have a mega that sets the rain. It kind of is limited to the fact that you have to run a Pelipper or a Politoed to have that weather versus a Mega Charizard or Mega T-Tar or Mega Froslass, right? Like these megas are like can be a one-man show in their weather. Whereas like if you're running rain, you often have like at least like a 3 Pokemon core around that whole thing. Whereas like these other weathers in a lot of instances are just a solo mega Pokemon doing what it does.
And which allows you to run the support that it needs to be successful, like the Whimsicott, like the Incineroar, where like with Pelipper and Politoed, for example, the weather setter is your support. So like you also have to protect them and then pivot them in and out. And it doesn't allow them to do the things that they want to do, like click Y guard or click tailwind or click like helping hand, like because you have to control the weather. So yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, do you think we see a new Mega show up with Drizzle?
I I think it's a possibility. I don't know which Mega would get it at this point because I was wholly convinced Mega Drampa was going to have Drizzle prior to Champions coming out. It
It
just made
so much
sense.
sense. Yeah.
It didn't happen. But it feels weird that rain is the only weather currently to not have that, and especially because like before, because even before we got froslass, because we still had a bomb of snow, so we've always had 3 out of the 4 weathers for megas, and we just never had the rain. Um, so I think like it would make sense from a even just like from like a balance perspective to have a mega with rain, but it's just I don't know what one of the remaining megas that they haven't given an ability to that they would give it to.
Maybe they're just scared of what it would do next to Urshifu when that time comes.
Which is understandable. But I mean, Unseen Fist is nerfed now at least, so like we don't have to quite deal with the same kind of problem we used to.
I think that was a really good nerf.
That was a good nerf. Like I, because like it's still going to be a very good Pokemon. But now there's an actual like defensive way to play around Urshifu. Where it's like,
Especially,
yeah,
yeah, all of its
I,
moves still crit. Like all of its surging strikes or wicked blows still crit. So like it's still gonna do like a decent amount, but like you don't have to worry about getting one shot it through protect.
yeah, like you could actually like, oh hey, I have this mon at half health. Well, if I can just protect this turn, so he's forced to still attack this slot again the following turn, because I don't die to the reduced to damage surging strikes. Well, sometimes that's maybe all you need is to make sure that they have to target that slot again. So I think it's a very positive nerf, I think.
I was always hoping for some reason, like I don't know if like I don't think my idea is better, but I was hoping that like they would nerf it so like it treats every protect like a double protect. Where like yeah, if you protect but like there's like a 33% chance like Urshifu still hits you.
That'd be interesting. Where it's just like, yeah, like you could protect, but there's just a chance that he just blows through it.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's kind of like Sandvale on garchomp. Like there's a
yeah,
chance you might miss me for no reason. Like
yeah. That'd be an interesting way to do it. But I think the damage reduction just makes sense because like that's what they did for like max moves and Z moves and stuff too, right? So I think that just like
yeah.
made sense general approach to it.
And they probably also already had like the foundation to do that in the coding.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how they do with the terrains.
I'm I'm interested in it because like I feel like they need to bring like obviously like they'll have to bring back like all the terrain or like at least a terrain setter for all 4 terrains at once. Because like I feel like when we had like in early Scarlet and Violet when we like essentially only had Indeedee, it was very unhealthy for the metagame when we only had like one terrain really available. Like we had electric terrain, but like no one's using Pink Urchin.
No one.
Um, so I feel like they have to bring back all of them, but then that means like we'd be getting like Rillaboom, or I think it'd be interesting to get the Tapus back finally. But I think it's a little bit before we see sub legendaries come back into the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I want like I know people are complaining about like the meta being stagnant, which I like disagree, especially after seeing Indianapolis. But I think we should go a good while without seeing legendaries or sub legendaries. There's so many mons that we could be seeing, like in just
I
like this meta.
I was kind of in a hope that like coming into Champions, I had really hoped that we were just gonna have like all of the Pokemon that weren't in Scarlet and Violet that weren't also legendaries just immediately be available. Because like we're missing out on some Pokemon like Nidoking would be kind like Nidoking, Nidoqueen would be kind of cool because those are
Oh,
like
so fun.
so like they have such a good move pool because of Gen 1 Pokemon and they get sheer force. So like it's they're like oddly like really good Pokemon because like I specifically take like Nidoking, sheer force with earth power, flamethrower, thunderbolt, ice beam, sludge bomb. Like it has such a deep coverage with the poison ground typing. You wall Sneasler. You resist both Dire Claw and close combat, and then you hit with earth power. It's actually like oddly like a really good Pokemon, and like we just haven't got to play with it in years. So it's like it's kind of still sad that it's like still not in Champions.
I agree with you. I would love to see that because like Nidoqueen and Nidoking could fill so many holes in like certain matchups with whatever you need.
Yeah, like they just offer a lot, especially like if we had Life Orb back in the game too, right? Because then you just have your classic Sheer Force Life Orb combo. But there's definitely like some old Pokemon that haven't been in VGC for the Scarlet Violet era that are still missing that I think will be really interesting to get back in the game.
I constantly sit down and think, oh man, I go, man, how good would Gastron be in this format?
Oh, Gastrodon feels so good, in my opinion. Like Rain's not like so common, but because of just how good Basculegion is, it's so good. It'd be
Yeah,
so good.
we saw people run Helioptile. Like,
Yeah, dry like the dry skin Heliolisk stuff. So you can just wall out standard Basculegions. And it's just like we were at such a point in the metagame where people were running just like very mediocre Pokemon just because they had like a very specific niche into one top Pokemon. And like when we have a Pokemon that's like hitting like over 60% usage, it's kind of a sign that like, hey, we have a centralized meta, and that's never like a super fun thing when it's just like a super. I don't even want to say like Pokemon centralized meta because like a lot of the top Pokemon were all like on the same teams. So we had like a very like one team centralized meta for a while now with the Charizard Y stuff, which felt very oppressive in the team builder, in my opinion. Which like I think like showed in Indy where like we had like a lot of like the standard Zard teams in day two, but a lot of them fell to the wayside in Top Cut.
yeah, and then you also saw things like the 61% King Gambit in day two usage.
Yeah, and like obviously like there's no denying that like they're not like they're amazing Pokemon. And like they were good in like Scarlet and Violet's Regulation H, but like we have such like a limited toolkit in Regulation MA that like half the time like the best thing that's checking the top Pokemon are just the other top Pokemon. So
Yeah,
then you're kind of loop where like, well, to beat Basculegion, I have to have King Gambit. Well, to beat King Gambit, I want to have like my Charizard, my Garchomp. Well, if I want to beat Charizard, like I can just run like adaptability Basculegion. Like we're stuck with this loop where like the top like 10 Pokemon just are beating each other, and so everyone's using this broadly speaking, a lot of people were using the same stuff.
Yeah. All right, so
we saw build adapt to what was good and prove that.
Oh, no, you're starting to cut out again.
How about now?
Yes. Okay. So let's fire these last two out. Will you be attending NAIC?
I will not be attending NAIC. The events were just like too close together for me to like make both of them happen. It's my thing.
I'm poor, so
that becomes the issue.
Would you like to give any shout outs?
Mainly just shout out to my friend John Luke VGC. He did a lot of the number crunching for the team in the builder and everything, and he did a lot of the work for the actual team itself, and then I was just able to pilot it to the top, right? So just a massive shout out to him for the team, for all his effort for that.
All right. Well, we are proud of you. I feel better that I got my butt whooped by you every single time in our Reg A++ tournaments. Because now when I look at that, I can be like, yeah, but he top cut a regional, so.
So it's justified.
We'll have to start running those again.
Yeah, we'll have to start doing something again.
But once again, congratulations. I wanted to say thanks for sitting down and talking with me, because I was just like, oh, I know this guy. Like, I was like, we can get some content out of it. We can talk about a team. And I was like, and I've never done like an interview, so.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun to like sit down and just chat Pokemon, right? I love the game so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, Champions has really like given a bunch of resurgence, like, because the end of Scarlet and Violet, it just got so boring.
Yeah, I mean, like, one almost 4 full years, right? Like, it was just people were ready for something different.
Then we knew what was coming, cause like around like year 3, so it was just like it was just such a tease. But I'm gonna end the video here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll have I definitely somewhere throughout this editing have put the images of the rental code in the spreads if you want to check that out, because I just realized now this whole time I've just been sitting here with the screenshot of Evan and his team without the actual spread. So I will have all that linked in the description down below. If you want to check out John Luke's video, I will also have that linked as well, and I will have to subscribe to him while I am at it. And if you want to check out the rest of my indie coverage that was in the previous video, that will probably be linked in the end of the video. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if anyone else wants to talk to me about how they played in a tournament, let me know. Till next time, I'm Zach, and we'll see everyone later.